Welcome back to this next part of my intro series to CT Mass Battle 2. This time we're going to be looking at Zaferino. Zaferino is one of the players invited from the Massachusetts side of this CT Mass Battle bracket. Zaf is a player who is known for, at least in our scene, and I can speak with a little more certainty than with some of the CT players as I'm more familiar with his playstyle. But great fundamental focus, zoning. He's a real a student of the game. If you watch any of the content that he puts out, be it on Twitch or YouTube, you're going to see the way that he approaches the game. So we're going to be looking at two videos of his. I've gone back to TCR Awaken Week 2, where I was fortunate enough to find a game that he won and a game that he lost that fit my constraints. My constraints that I set for myself being that I don't want to use any footage of any of the players who were invited against one another in this analysis, because I don't want to have, say, a match between Zaf and Hambam where I will color their approach to one another in their individual videos. So first we're going to be looking at a match where Zaf beats Volcanic Akuma, and then subsequently, luckily for me, they're both in one place. He then loses to Draken. In general, Zaf is a player that we regularly see making it to the top threes at the very least of our own brackets. For the Awaken tournament series, he placed third at, if I'm not mistaken, third or fourth at 2 events. He placed top 8 at every single one of our events. He's broken top 3 at NLBC, especially afterwards. He's beaten Nokami. I believe he beat IDOM at 1.2 with the Sagat, which is no small feat. IDOM is one of, if not the best Laura is still playing that character in the area. So yeah, we're gonna jump right in. We're gonna start with this one, and apologies for having to look at my ugly mug. I promise this isn't self-promotion.
The very tip of his standing medium kick to really slow down the pace. But Volcanic...
I'm even going to turn down the audio so that I'm not talking over myself. Yeah, so one of the strongest things, and unlike some of the CT videos like I alluded, I'm going to have a far easier time talking about the player tendencies of the players in mass, because I'm already familiar with a lot of them. Zaf's anti-airs are always on point. Oh my word, is this ever going to zoom into the gameplay proper? Yeah, Zaf's anti-air is anti-airs are on point. One of the things I see him do is he'll forego Oki mid-screen a lot on certain knockdowns and instead elect to spend that time to set up the Angry Scar. And in some of these matchups, particularly like the Akuma matchup, the extra damage from that Angry Scar is huge. But, let's look at what's going on here. Hit by the overhead, that's something Volcanic Akuma does a lot. And I'm surprised Zaf isn't necessarily wise to that. Volcanic Akuma will clear out with stun or kill with the overhead quite often. Yep, there's the anti-airs again. You're going to see him very rarely miss those. And in fact, there's another Sagat in our scene that we sort of unfavorably compare to Zaf, primarily because his anti-air game is more predicated on standing roundhouse, and it just feels like he's leaving so much on the table not using the anti-air. So patient. There's the standing roundhouse, but he gets the standing reset there, and that works out nicely for him. But stuck in the corner, EXDP. That's another thing about Zaf. Like, he will let those DPs rock really often, and I've talked to him about it a couple of times. Because it's not always a good look. Finds the throw tech and the delayed medium kick. Just like that, he's getting a little bit more space. So patient here. Yep. Finds a little bit more momentum. Doesn't blow up the shimmy quite as much as he otherwise could have. But, one thing is Zaf... I want to say he doesn't like to overcommit, but then we're going to see him a couple of times. Jesus Christ, he gets demoned. I mean, Volcanic Akuma is going to do that to you. Ugh. I'm not going to talk about that because this series isn't about Volcanic Akuma. It's about Zaf. But so, what happened here? I mean, he got walked down to the corner. So, if he's going to win in a matchup against an Akuma, I'll pause and talk about this a little bit in a vacuum. If a Sagat player is going to win against an Akuma, what does he have to do? He's got the life that he can sit on and trade. Akuma doesn't. The onus is on Akuma to get in and make something happen and pressure the Sagat. Sagat has a reversal that he can use to stifle that pressure, and he's got good limbs to try to stop that forward momentum. So the onus in this situation is on the Akuma player and Volcanic Akuma to get inside and pressure him. Meanwhile, the Sagat needs to not overextend and really just... I mean, even trades work out in his favor, because so long as he's trading favorably, he'll win in the war of attrition. And what we saw in this first game was Volcanic Akuma getting in, and if he gets in, that's just that. And then the patented Raging Demon to finish it out. Yeah. So let's take a closer second, pay a little bit more attention. So he does end up winning the set. Now see, he goes for the Angry Scar there again. He'll try to set up that Angry Scar really often. And look at the damage. It's especially in this matchup, I like it because if he's going to, and I'll pause it so I don't miss anything else. If he's going to be playing a style where he's really setting up those fireballs, playing really neutral focus from like the standing medium kick range and outwards, and he's going to be trying to frustrate you into jumping. If he can increase the damage on his anti-airs, why not? And especially so little life on Akuma, it's just that's one less thing that he can take in every trade. Finds the way in with the Fierce Target combo, the Wake Up DP, just regular DP too, no bar available, and another uppercut. Oh, and that feels bad if you're Volcanic Akuma. Oh no, never mind. It feels bad if you're Zaf too. It's an unfortunate drop. That's something that I do feel as though we see sometimes from Zaf. I do feel like we see that sometimes, particularly in the TCR series. Maybe it was a stick thing, but in the Awaken series, I felt as though we saw looser execution a little bit from Zaf sometimes. You'd get DPs where he didn't want them, or overheads where he didn't want them. Speaking of overheads where you don't want them, right? So we see Volcanic Akuma trying to slow the game down himself now that he's down around and answering back with more fireballs. The thing is, Zaf, the second he sees that, notice he starts moving more, he starts walking around more, and he's poking a little bit more aggressively. Because what's going on is Volcanic Akuma is now trying to throw those fireballs, and obviously those are at a range that is farther out than his limbs, which gives Zaf the freedom to take that step forward because the space in front of him is no longer being contested by Akuma's limbs. He's trying to contest them from a farther range with the fireball. If Zaf picks his spacing right, he can blow up the startup of the fireball. Oh, so little late on the roundhouse anti-air, finds the nice hit confirm. That's probably maybe the only anti-air that he hasn't landed in this set so far. And at this point, yeah, there's nothing else to do, right? Just sit back and chuck the fireballs. Zaf will let you hang yourself with this Sagat. Oh yeah, I agree, past me. That was a great Sagat game. The presence of mind to, in that moment where Volcanic Akuma starts throwing fireballs and trying to match in a zoning game, to immediately have pivoted to using more buttons is a real testament to Zaf's knowledge of the game state. Yeah, I have to imagine that overhead in neutral was supposed to be a high Tiger shot. Yeah, pushing him down, finds the range for that. Oh, that's unfortunate. I think it was supposed to be a Kara Tiger knee, but he didn't get it, or uppercut rather. That's another thing. We'll see it. Zaf is not afraid to use his uppercut proper, and he makes such great use of that standing medium kick. Sagat's standing medium kick and other standing medium kicks like it, like for example, Dictator's standing medium kick, similarly. I like to call them, or I think about them as the sit the hell down buttons. They hit in this range, like they're not special cancelable, they don't really lead to anything, but they hit in this range where you're sort of outside of footsie range where anything's going to be really threatening, outside of like a counter hit or like a meaty counter poke. And it's in ranges where players might be inclined to jump or backdash or do something to try to either steal a little bit of space or gain a little bit of space and feel relatively secure in doing so. And those normals are really great for just that little bop to be like, no, you need to sit still. I'm not done with you. It's particularly really great for Bison. Dictator is a character that makes great use of that, especially because he really wants you standing to go for those frame traps. But here, Zaf's using it to a similar effect where it's like, no, if you want to jump at me, you have to either make your way back and deal with this fireball pressure, or try to walk in through my limbs. So, another round up for Zaf. And we see Volcanic Akuma, I mean, that's another, probably maybe the second jump that wasn't anti-aired, but he hadn't really gone for air fireball at all. He was playing far more aggressive. There's the anti-air. I mean, if you're able to keep the Akuma player out, what else is he supposed to do? Stun becoming a factor here for Volcanic Akuma. And that's going to be it. Charges the Angry Scar. Yeah, I mean, it was just a clean 2 games once he clued into what Volcanic Akuma was doing. That first game was really Volcanic Akuma got in, and Zaf bled because, I mean, what else was he supposed to do? But the subsequent 2 games, pure fundamentals, super solid anti-airs, using all of the tools in his kit effectively, and then in particular with the character matchup, Akuma can only bleed so much. So I mean, I guess that's the takeaway. Pardon me while I zoom forward to Zaf Draken, which is the next match that we'll be doing. But in terms of takeaways, it's just when Zaf wins, it looks solid. And I think that's usually what I find when I'm watching Zaf, is when he's winning, it's because he's just playing a solid neutral game. He's playing to Sagat's strengths. He's zoning effectively. If he is rushing you down, it's still, not necessarily super overcommittal. So we're going to jump into this game that I do believe that he loses, as is, part of my edict in this series, is Zaf Draken. This is from the same tournament. As you saw, I just zoomed forward. Yep, so Draken opens this with Mika, but if I'm not mistaken, Draken loses the first game as Mika and then switches to Ibuki? That might be a different game I'm thinking of. I saw this matchup a couple of times in the Awaken series. Yep, nice whiff punish on the sweep there. He's still able to establish that range. Yep, and we see Draken attempting to alter his jump trajectory, but with the Kara uppercut, he can go forward. It's the body slam isn't really going to do very much to dissuade him. Hitting buttons after drop kick is Zaf. That's interesting. It must have been, I wonder if it was a spacing decision. And there we see it again. More solid uppercuts. Yep. Finds it. Pops Nadeshko. Gets the cross up. What's the mix up? Oh, the weird corpse hop stuff. Oh, I have to believe he didn't actually want that overhead there. Finds the V-trigger confirm. Now that seems kind of big. Okay, so he commits and he takes the game. Yeah. So this was once again. I mean, it was a similar thing from what we just saw in Volcanic Akuma, and I mean, in real time, it was less than 10 minutes before we saw this game just now. But it was just solid play. We saw him playing perhaps a bit more aggressive Mika without a proper reversal, so. He doesn't need to afford quite so much respect on Mika's wake up as he does on an Akuma, wherein, that bar is going to be spent on a reversal. And we see Draken go to character select. So I do believe that I'm right, and that this was the match that Draken won after switching to Ibuki. Once again, my ugly mug. Let me scroll forward so we don't need to do this. Yep, there's the Ibuki. Yeah, so if I recall correctly, the story of this match is Draken making good use of Ibuki's V skill. Oh, dropped confirm there into the uppercut. That's unfortunate. Yeah, see, so there was one of it, right? That V skill pulling her hurt box back, making it harder for Zaf to counterpoke. Hits him low on his wake up. Zaf maybe walking back. Walk back to Latek. Little shimmy micro walk. No overcommitment here from Draken. Finds him in the corner. Oh, bites on the dash forward. Okay, that works out nicely for him.
We saw Draken sort of bounce in his seat a little bit when that worked. Yeah, and that was really smart because when Draken cornered himself on purpose, I'm sure he
it seems as though a few things went wrong for him in that round, and my assumption is, given that he ends up losing this set, that he doesn't quite tune into them in time. Draken gets away with some of those command dashes. And Ibuki's air movement makes it such that perhaps he doesn't feel super comfortable anti-airing it. Just being able to come down immediately on top of his head. And then it's just the V-skill as a counterpoke, moving her hurt box back. There we see it again. He was a little too close there. The Crouching Fierce working for him. We see him, Zaf, now going for those buttons, relying on that crouching strong and that crouching fierce to try to stop that forward momentum. Gets hit on the overhead. That's such a slow overhead. And there's the V-skill again, blowing him up for going forward. Cross-ups. Next hit is stun. Just hits him with the low forward. I wonder what Zaf was doing on his wake-up. In fact, I did this a moment ago. Let's see if we get to find out. I'm going to slow down the playback and see if we can pick out what he was doing when he got hit on his wake-up. I want to see if we get to find out what he did. No, he just got hit on the first frame. He was stand blocking. It is not clear to me what he was doing. Maybe he was trying to DP or something, and it just didn't come out on reversal frames. But that's a quick game answered back from Draken. But yeah, I mean, the takeaway seems to be Draken with Ibuki is able to either pick a space in his block strings where he could use the V-skill to pepper him with damage, and the V-skill with the knockback and the knockdown affords him more control of the neutral. She can better operate around Zaf's fireball pressure because her, that command jump going so far forward and coming down like immediately on top of him makes it difficult. And Zaf, in that round we did see him answering back the command dashes. We saw him really using crouching fierce a lot as a poke.
Big standing roundhouse from Draken.
Yeah, that's a big confirm.
Yeah, I really like this pick from Draken. The stick switch as well as the character switch.
Now that neutral jump seems to me as though it might be an answer to the V-skill. Similar to what we see from people playing around, Dictator or Boxer.
How did that not cross up?
I don't know, past me. How did that not cross up?
I got mixed.
Yeah. So here we see this round's going better for him, but, look at the ranges that he's able to play at. He managed to shut Draken down sort of in that standing medium kick range. And slowed the momentum. The air kunai, getting over the fireball, and it converts into damage if he spends the bar. Wake up DP gets red. So this is one thing about Zaf, and I can say this as someone who's gotten to watch and commentate a fair few of his games. He is so dedicated to playing the neutral. I see he has a tendency to, he will V-reversal if you have plus frames. He doesn't want to bother with the mix. On hit, he gets to reset it back to neutral and move on with his life. He'll pull the trigger on EXTP. For a time, especially during the Awaken series, it was so common that I felt like we were basically expecting him to DP on every wake up for a time. As long as he's right more often than he's not, it works out nicely for him. And that's something that if you're a character that has a proper reversal like that, if you're not using that tool, you are not instilling in your opponent the fear of that tool, and you need to flex that in order for them to respect it. And that respect is what gives you the breathing room on your wake up to do other defensive choices sometimes, like maybe a wake up button, or maybe you get really aggressive and do try to jump out of the corner or some other crazy stuff that you'll only get away with because they don't think they can properly melee you because the DP is going to slow their momentum down. And just like that, you're down half stun. All the momentum's gone and you've gotten to reset back to neutral. I've even seen Zaf do regular DP quite a bit. Just because it's a tool that he has and he's going to use it. The V-reversal there. There we saw Draken explicitly playing around the V-reversal. I think we're going to see it again. Delay back throw from Zaf, and just like that, he's got a screen full of real estate to work with. Oh, nope. Bites on the grab. And command dash mix for the grab again. Draken. Oh, so this ends up being set point for both of them. Draken does win. EX Tiger Knee at round start is a ballsy decision. It's a hard read. Neutral jump again. Yeah, I do believe that the neutral jump is his attempt to adjust the play around the V skill here. And then that crouch fierce. It seems as though now that he's not gotten the anti-airs, it looks to me as though when Drake goes to the air in a lot of ranges, Zaf is instead just jumping himself, not wanting to bother dealing with trying to decide around the kunai. Yep, dash back, just getting out of range.
Gets a little bit of gray life on the board too.
And then the air-to-air from Draken. Next hit will do it. Wake up DP. Next hit will do it for both of them. Oh, drops the combo on the counter hit and then just gets swept. So that was a super close set. You know, if Zaf had been able to hit confirm off of the counter hit stand short, he would have ended up winning. But, you know, just Draken just got out the better of it in the scramble. And that seems, you know, when I try to go through these games and I want to see what it looks like when Zaf loses, or when any player loses, I suppose. And my expectation was that it would be, you know, there would be an element to being outplayed in some way. But what we saw in this set was just, to be completely honest, you know, in a way, the power of Ibuki, right? Lots of mileage out of the kunai, that V-skill making it really hard for Zaf to counterpoke, and if it's hard for him to counterpoke, it's hard for him to stall the forward momentum. So she gets those command dashes, she gets to walk in, she gets to throw kunais and walk in behind them. You know, go for the overhead kicks. I guess if my takeaway is that when Zaf is winning, he's playing a solid game, and he's able to anti-air, and he's able to make you sit down. When Zaf's losing, it's because you got in. You know, if I want to put on sort of a cynical hat, Zaf loses when you force him to play Street Fighter V. You know, when you get in on him and really flex the set play of, you know, looping plus frames into plus frames and powerful Oki like Ibuki has, you know, these explosive mix-up opportunities where they can really front-load the damage. He kind of needs to read and do a gutsy defensive choice like EXDP or V reversal. And if you get in and you read when he's going to do that, then you've got the round. You know, because he only gets to make that choice, you know, maybe twice in a round. You know, especially if he makes the choice and you read it properly, that, you know, depending on your character, that could very well be the round. So, ultimate takeaways for Zaferino. What we've got in Zaf is an incredibly solid fundamental player. Makes sense. He's been in the scene since Street Fighter 4, at the latest, if not, you know, longer than that. Real student of the game, labs a lot of super specific situations, and has a very good awareness to the game state. So you'll see he doesn't necessarily overcommit. And when he gets into his zone, he looks super dominant. What it looks like when Zaf loses is he gets smothered. And he gets smothered to the point where he needs to make a defensive choice. And if you can smother him, and if you can smell DPs when they're coming, then you can beat Zaf. The problem is, in order to smother him, you need to overcome his neutral. And that's it for me on this one. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm going to be bringing up the rest of these players over this time, so click the links in the video or check out the channel if you want to see more of these breakdowns. Make sure you tune in to CT Mass Battle on May 4th. Make sure you turn into the Last Chance Qual from GreatValueSmash on April 23rd. And if you could follow me on Twitter and all the socials accordingly, if you want to hear more from me, I'd really appreciate that too. Thanks for taking the time to listen, guys.